When a billionaire's newborn twins couldn't move a single limb, everyone said it was a curse, but one night, he walked into the nursery and saw his black maid doing something that left him trembling. Before we dive in, make sure to hit subscribe, because this story will make you believe in miracles, forgiveness, and the power of love. The rain that night was relentless, hammering against the tall glass walls of the Parker estate like nature itself was trying to warn them. Ethan Parker, one of New York's youngest billionaires, stood in the hospital corridor still wearing his designer suit, drenched from the storm, his jaw tight with a fear he couldn't admit out loud. Inside the delivery room, machines beeped, nurses rushed, and his wife Isabella screamed through the pain that had turned their fairy tale marriage into a night of chaos. Ethan had built empires, real estate, tech, shipping, but nothing terrified him like the sound of his wife's cries. When the doctor finally emerged, exhaustion lining his face, Ethan's heart dropped before a word was spoken. "Mr. Parker," the doctor said quietly, "your wife is stable, but the twins," Ethan stumbled forward. "What about my children?" The doctor sighed. "They're alive, but there are complications. Both babies show complete paralysis from the neck down." Ethan blinked, as if the words had been spoken in a foreign language. Paralysis. Impossible. His billions could fix anything, couldn't they? He burst into the room and saw two tiny forms in incubators, perfect faces, perfect skin, but motionless. Isabella's eyes fluttered open, and when she saw the look on his face, she knew. She started to cry, reaching for his hand. "Ethan, tell me they're okay." He couldn't. That was the night everything changed, not just for Ethan and Isabella, but for the woman who would soon walk into their lives. Grace Johnson, a quiet black woman from Atlanta who would become their maid, and later, the reason Ethan would question everything he believed about money, faith, and miracles. Weeks later, the Parkers returned home. Their mansion, a modern palace overlooking the Hudson, now felt like a museum of sorrow. Isabella rarely left her bed. Ethan drowned himself in work and silence. Nurses came and went, whispering pity behind his back. Every therapy, every doctor, nothing worked. The twins, Mia and Lucas, remained still as porcelain dolls. Ethan fired 3 nurses in frustration before Isabella's mother suggested hiring help. "There's a woman," she said. "Used to work in hospice care down south. People say she has a gift." Ethan scoffed. "A gift? I need a nurse, not a priest." But when the 4th nurse quit, he finally relented. Grace Johnson arrived on a rainy Tuesday morning, wearing a simple beige coat and carrying a small worn Bible. She spoke softly but firmly, her southern accent warm like honey over steel. "Mr. Parker," she said, shaking his hand, "I ain't here to promise miracles. I'm just here to serve, love, and do my best for your babies." Ethan barely looked at her. "Just follow the doctor's schedule. Feed them on time. Don't do anything unnecessary." Grace smiled faintly. "Sometimes what's necessary ain't what's written on paper, sir." At first, she seemed ordinary, quiet, disciplined, unshakably kind. But within a week, Ethan began noticing strange things. Late at night, when he returned from his office, faint hymns floated through the baby monitor. The twins' room smelled of lavender and candle wax, even though he'd banned open flames. One night, he caught Grace whispering softly over the twins, her hands hovering inches above their tiny bodies. "What are you doing?" he barked, startling her. Grace turned slowly. "Praying, sir, praying." Ethan scoffed. "I pay you to care for them, not to chant over them like some preacher." Grace met his glare calmly. "Mr. Parker, sometimes caring is more than feeding and bathing. These babies need love that don't come from machines." He stormed out, but the next morning, when he checked the monitor footage, he froze. Around 3 a.m., the twins' fingers had twitched. Just once. The doctors said it was impossible. Ethan told himself it was a camera glitch, yet deep down, something had shifted. Days turned into weeks. Isabella grew distant, consumed by guilt and depression. "They're paying the price for my sins," she whispered one night. "I was cold, Ethan. I used you for money. Maybe God's punishing me." Ethan tried to dismiss it, but his own conscience wasn't clean. The empire he'd built was laced with ruthless deals and betrayals. Maybe they were being punished. One night, after another long day, Ethan returned home early. The mansion was quiet except for a faint humming from the nursery. He pushed the door open silently. Grace was there, standing over the cribs, the room bathed in the glow of a single candle. She was singing in a language he didn't recognize, her hands moving slowly over the babies. Then it happened. Mia's hand twitched again, not once, but twice. Then Lucas's toe moved. Ethan gasped. Grace didn't turn. You shouldn't be watching, Mr. Parker, she said softly. What is this? What are you doing to my children? She finally looked at him, tears in her eyes. Loving them, speaking life into them, something money can't buy. He wanted to fire her on the spot, but he couldn't. The movements had been real. He'd seen them, and deep inside, for the first time in months, he felt hope. From that night on, Ethan secretly began watching. Grace sang to the twins every midnight, prayed over them, and spoke as if they could understand her. You ain't broken, she'd whisper. You're waiting to wake up. And little by little, they did. Lucas blinked more often. Mia's lips curled faintly when Grace sang. The doctors were baffled. There's no medical explanation, one said. Paralysis doesn't just reverse. But it was happening. Isabella, however, didn't believe it. She saw Grace's presence as a threat. She's filling your head with superstition. She shouted. You think she's some miracle worker? She's a maid. Ethan tried to calm her, but Isabella's jealousy festered. One morning, she stormed into the nursery and snatched the Bible off Grace's table. You think this book, is healing my children? She threw it across the room. Grace didn't flinch. She simply picked it up, dusted it off, and said quietly, You might not believe, ma'am. But they do. That was the first time Isabella slapped her. Ethan didn't find out until later, when he saw the red mark on Grace's cheek and she still refused to complain. Something inside him broke. Weeks later, on Christmas Eve, everything came crashing down. Isabella threw a grand charity gala at their mansion to distract from the scandal spreading online about Ethan's failing company. The house glittered with lights and champagne laughter, but upstairs, the twins lay silent, forgotten. Grace stayed with them, singing softly. Midnight neared. Suddenly, one candle blew out though the windows were shut. Grace froze, sensing something shift. Then a faint sound, a whimper. Mia's lips trembled. Then she cried. A real cry. Grace gasped, tears flooding her eyes. Thank you, Lord, she whispered. She grabbed her phone and called Ethan. Sir, come, now. Downstairs, Ethan excused himself and ran up the stairs. When he burst into the nursery, Grace stepped aside. Mia's little arm had moved, reaching toward him. He fell to his knees. Oh my God. The gala music below faded. As he wept beside his daughter's crib. Then Lucas moved too, his fingers curling around Grace's hand. But when Ethan turned toward her, she was trembling. It's not me, sir, she whispered. It's them, they chose to live. Behind them, Isabella stood in the doorway, frozen. For the first time in months, she saw her children truly alive. And yet, instead of joy, her face twisted in envy and fear. You did this, she hissed at Grace. You witch. Grace shook her head. No, ma'am, love did. Ethan shouted, enough. But Isabella was already spiraling, accusing Grace of manipulation, calling security, screaming about witchcraft. Grace was fired that night, escorted out in the cold. Ethan tried to stop it, but Grace simply smiled. It's all right, sir. My work here's done. When she walked away, snow fell softly over her shoulders like a blessing. The next morning, Ethan awoke to crying, both babies crying, loudly, alive, and moving. The doctors called it a miracle. Isabella collapsed in disbelief. Ethan stood silently by the window, staring at the snow, remembering Grace's final words. He realized then that he hadn't just witnessed healing, he'd witnessed faith strong enough to melt a frozen heart. And that was only the beginning. The next morning, sunlight spilled through the mansion's tall windows for the first time in months, but instead of peace, chaos erupted. The twins' miraculous recovery spread like wildfire. One of the nurses leaked a video, a few seconds of Mia moving her hand, Grace standing beside her, whispering a prayer. Within hours, the video hit social media. Billionaire's paralyzed twins healed by Maid's touch. Flashed across every screen. Ethan's phone wouldn't stop ringing. Investors, journalists, and even church pastors wanted to know if it was true. Isabella hid in her room, her pride bleeding into paranoia. They think she's an angel, she hissed, pacing. Do you know what this makes me look like? The cold mother who couldn't help her own children. Ethan tried to calm her. Bella, stop. This isn't about you, it's about them. But she wasn't listening. You're falling for her, she spat. That woman, Grace, she bewitched you. Ethan's jaw clenched. Grace gave us back our children. You should be thanking her. Thanking her. Isabella laughed bitterly. She humiliated me. She made me feel powerless. That night, Isabella packed her things and left for Europe, to clear her mind. Ethan didn't stop her. The truth was, she'd been gone long before she walked out. Days turned into weeks. The twins grew stronger, moving, giggling, even learning to sit up with therapy. Ethan hired the best doctors to monitor their progress, but secretly, every night before bed, he replayed the footage of Grace singing. Her words echoed in his head. "You ain't broken, you're waiting to wake up." He wanted to find her, to thank her, maybe even to understand how any of this was possible. But every trace of Grace Johnson had vanished. Her phone was disconnected, her old address in Atlanta, empty. It was as if she'd never existed. One evening, while putting the twins to sleep, Ethan found a folded note under Mia's crib. In neat, handwritten cursive, it read, "Greater than, when love heals, it doesn't ask for credit. Just promise me you'll raise them with faith, not fear, G." He held the note for a long time, tears stinging his eyes. For the first time, the billionaire who once believed money could buy everything finally understood what wealth really meant. Months passed. The twins were walking now, laughing, healthy, their giggles filling the once quiet mansion. Ethan Parker had everything again, his wealth, his family, and his hope. Yet, every night when he tucked the twins into bed, he still felt something missing. Grace, the woman who had disappeared after giving him back what no doctor could, his children's lives. One Sunday, while taking the twins to a community charity event in Harlem, Ethan heard a familiar voice singing a gospel hymn from inside a small church. His heart skipped. He stepped inside quietly, and there she was. Grace Johnson, standing in the front pew, leading the choir, her voice like sunlight through stained glass. When she saw him, she froze, her smile fading into disbelief. "Mr. Parker." Ethan stepped forward. "Grace, I've been looking for you for months." She nodded slowly. "I figured you would, but I told you, my work there was done." "No," Ethan said firmly. "It wasn't just work. You saved my children. You saved me." Grace sighed, her eyes heavy with old pain. "You don't understand, sir. I didn't heal them alone." He frowned. "What do you mean?" Grace looked down at her hands. "Years ago, I had twins too, a boy and a girl. They were born sick, same as yours. I prayed day and night for a miracle. But they didn't make it. For years, I blamed myself, thought God had turned his back on me." Her voice trembled. "So I devoted my life to caring for other children. Every baby I held, I prayed over like they were mine. When I held yours, I felt something I hadn't felt in years, like God gave me another chance to love them the way I couldn't love my own." Ethan's throat tightened. "Grace, I didn't know." She smiled faintly. "You weren't supposed to. You were supposed to learn what money can't teach." He stared at her, speechless. "How did you do it? How did they heal?" Grace looked up, tears glistening. "Sometimes miracles don't come from heaven falling down, sir. Sometimes they rise from broken hearts learning to love again." Ethan felt his knees weaken. In that moment, all his pride, his power, his empire, none of it mattered. He took her hand gently. "You'll always be family to us." Grace shook her head. "No, sir. I'll always be their angel from afar. But they don't need angels anymore. They have you." As she turned to walk away, the twins, Mia and Lucas, spotted her from the back of the church. "Mama Grace," they cried, running toward her. Grace dropped to her knees, embracing them both, tears streaming freely. For a brief moment, time stood still, the billionaire, the maid, and the two miracles bound together by loss, love, and grace. When Grace finally walked away, Ethan looked after her, the morning sun blazing through the stained glass, painting her silhouette in gold. He whispered, "Thank you." And that day, Ethan Parker learned something no amount of wealth could buy, that sometimes, the most powerful miracles come not from science or money, but from the heart of someone who's lost everything and still chooses to love. Before you scroll, remember this: compassion is the greatest wealth of all. Subscribe for more stories that remind us, humanity is the real miracle. Dizzy.